What's good, everybody? What's going on, man? It's Stephen Qualls II, aka Mr. Qualified. It's boy. And we are back with another episode of the Wright Quality Podcast. Friends, co-hosts, please remind the people who you are.
Ashley Wright the first. Best nails on the pod. Check them out.
Facts.
Fresh set.
Factualities.
Second best, second best, second best. Not dirty, not dirty.
Not putting my
No,
name. Not happening. It's not happening.
that's why I said second best. I can at least show them. You're fresh out the gym, though. You're fresh out the gym, so it's a different type of grit and grind out there.
I appreciate that. I respect that.
I got millennial man hands. You know how my dad's got rock hands. Like there's no blood circulation going through those things in the winter. Salute my father. And hopefully he missed that part. Chris P. Man. Say it fast. Welcome. Great to see you all on the pod. This is as far as some of you will make it. I challenge you to go further. Other than a clip.
Why are you always coming for the viewers?
Oh, well, it's needed.
No, they need some verbal. If you're on Spotify, God bless. I hope I sound silky through my Mac speaker.
Silky.
Have not used my Yeti mic in about 10 episodes. We will be back. There's no space on this. None.
No space in the setup.
No, we're not really conducive to a podcast setup. We're very mobile, very on the go, as you might be while listening in the car. So let's get to it. Chop, chop. We got Steve.
Yeah, no, a lot to get into for sure. A lot has happened since the last time we've recorded, and a new NBA champion has been crowned. The NBA finals are now over. A 7-game series that I think everybody wanted. As we saw the series unfold. Unfortunately, in game 7, obviously, we saw Tyrese Halliburton get injured. Another Achilles injury, which will hopefully be another side quest conversation that we have once we get into everything. So we'll kind of save that for then. But yeah, man, thoughts on these finals? 7 games, 2 really, really good teams. How we feeling?
Man, it sucked. I hate that in game 7, that injury happened. It looked like Tyrese was about to give them 40 ball and take a ring on the road. But hey, I mean, good job. The Thunder did what they were supposed to do in game 7, especially unfortunately after an injury like that. You prove that you're the better team, protect home court, win in front of the fans. It really sucked from a fan perspective. And I really hope Tyrese, gets better. But he put out a nice heartfelt message on X with the picture. And it seems like he's in the right mindset. I hope he can bounce back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say great. It was Game of Thrones. For those that know.
Yep.
Incredible cinema. And then the last episode. Damn.
Yep.
It's a good analogy for sure.
It really is.
And also just terrible series of events, Tyrese. It's the calf strain to torn Achilles pipeline. I think people are attributing it to the negative step, which plays a part in every Achilles tear injury, no doubt, but it is almost stimulus. It is a muscle memory reaction. It's in hustle plays. It's in, plays where you're trying to, overextend and make something happen where it's just naturally that happens. I'm going to chalk it up to the current state of basketball and athletics where we're just overuse, overdoing, exerting our muscles for so long. They've played about as many games as probably prime Larry Bird has, let's be real in terms of their lifespan and what it looks like for youth sports and what all of that looks like too. I think it's more that than anything, but not to get on my high horse in the soapbox. The series was great. 2 small town, small market teams that I think show that they can put on quality product no matter what the name is. And I think that's the big win for everyone else. Like, this is going to suck. This is the people were saying this is the worst finals ever. Just I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this hating culture. Just sit and enjoy something. I thought it was, pretty good basketball back and forth, other than one blowout. It had another crazy comeback from Indiana. It had another back and forth series that proved to be, a chess match of, like, I wouldn't even say it. This was the opposite of making adjustments. They were making like destructive moves, it seemed, back and forth between Daigneault and Carlisle, where it's like, I'm not an NBA coach. I'm a JV coach, but let's start game 7. Granted, TJ McConnell was on a heater in the third quarter. I have layman's, not to call any of my homies layman's, not lame men, in layman's terms, casual basketball fans that wouldn't really watch either of these teams be like, where is Pascal Siakam?
Yeah.
Where is Pascal Siakam? What was going on? What rest do you need for game 7? What are we resting for? What are we saving? Gas that man until the Gatorade symbol flashes. I don't understand what that. I didn't understand what that was. You're giving TJ space to cook. Granted, he was really the only bright spot on offense. You don't keep Pascal Siakam out for a quarter and a half. It felt like I don't know. I think
that was the worst decision by Rick Carlisle throughout the entire playoffs.
It was like when he forgot that TJ McConnell was there in game 5.
That was his worst decision. That was his worst decision. That's Indiana. If Indiana wins game 5,
it might be very different. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm getting at. And then I think I can't even remember what Daigneault did. Refer to Daniel Lee. I think it was him who made a video on, Daigneault's poor coaching decision. I can't put my finger on what it exactly was, but it definitely didn't feel like there was one game he started Daniel Tice instead of Casey Wallace. That first game, not that really mattered. They were up by 20 and they squandered it.
You mean Wallace instead of Hartenstein?
Did they switch it that way? It could have been that, or yeah. So it's like
they started Case and Wallace, which is hard.
Like I said, they were up 20 and they just fumbled that one.
Yeah.
So it's like, can you really say it was the worst decision? But yeah, I don't know. It just felt like there was negative adjustments being made in this series. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, Ashley, was you about to say something?
No, just kind of a different point. A lot of people are like, how did OKC make the finals? Okay, Ja got injured. Who else was it? Steph.
I saw this. Yeah.
Yeah, but to me, it's like, okay, we could say the same for Indiana.
Every team in the last
literally
us.
Literally.
Yeah, so like champion.
It's a mix of luck and timing. I thought their timing was great, and they were also playing the strongest basketball. Like throughout the entire year. So it's like you can't really say how did they make it. Like rewatch.
Yeah.
The draft is on. Let me put my
Same for OKC though, best record throughout the league, whatever. Like, don't take away from what both of these teams have been able to do. I think that only feeds into these small market teams, this is so boring narrative.
We are a bunch of haters, Ashley.
Yeah.
We don't like anymore. We do things out of spite. We enjoy things sarcastically. We need to get it together.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we hate watch. Also, been a part of it. Can't say that I cannot be held accountable. But it comes to a point.
I agree. I think there's a difference. I think there's a difference in just flat out hate watching and wanting to see people fail versus hate watching as like a passionate fan, but also wanting to see good basketball. Like, I can hate watch all I want to, but if it's good basketball on, I'm gonna enjoy and appreciate good basketball. So it sucks that there's a part of the like hoops community and basketball community that legitimately hate watches or thinks that this is boring because we're not seeing star players. I also feel like this might be a generational thing, and this is a little bit of a side topic, but when you think of like when we're talking to OGs and you had the OGs that like feel like, the old school game was better because of XYZ and the new game is bad because of XYZ. So they don't appreciate this. And then you got like our generation that's like kind of in the middle. So I feel like if you talk to a lot of us that was able to see kind of like the end of that like Duncan and them era into like Bron and Steph and them into these new players with Ant, like we have a bit of a better sense, so to say, for the most part, or at least like a bit of a holistic view. But then you got like the younger generation that only knows Bron or only knows PG or only knows Steph. So like they have this very weird and skewed like vision of basketball because basketball looks different in the last 10 to 12 years than it did 20 years ago. And I think that we got so many sections of the basketball community now we're all looking at the game today, but we're looking at it from such different perspectives that the discourse is just terrible all
This is
around.
what I don't know what edits the kids are watching now. Like, is it half aura edits where it's just like we're using a Cardi, Evil Jordan just to show like, the different fits, like how swaggy, how demure Shea is. Like, is that really where we're at? Where
Yes.
and then also, just foul merchant allegations. What else? It's just there's not a real dialogue on what brand of basketball is being played, how teams are functioning to win. Outside of shouts out Daniel Lee, that I don't know those pockets of informational videos that we'll find on YouTube. Other than that, it's just very I don't know hyperbolic, flagrant, charged comments that are just meant to elicit a reaction. I'm good for one an episode, but I gotta drive viewership. These guys got great takes that y'all gotta hear. If y'all gotta lambaste me, so be it. Go crazy.
Lambist is insane. Uh, but back to the series. What did you all think of player matchup is a weird way to put it, but if we're looking at Halliburton and not Steph, good guy, good guy. If we're looking at Halliburton and SGA in this series, as a player matchup from the sake of being the leaders of the team, what do we think about their output in this series?
Oh, I feel like they did what they needed to be done. It was a solid first finals appearance from both of them individually. I understand that Shea, there were a few games where he could have done more. And then for Hali, what was it, 4 points he had in game two?
Not was that two or
Or
was
was
that
that
four?
five? Four.
Four.
Game four. Yeah, you can't end the game in single digits like that. But I mean, like let's just be realistic. He's young, first finals appearance. Team was still able to do what needed to be done in a sense. Um, yeah, I'm not disappointed in either of them.
So what do we attribute Halliburton's inconsistency to? Because
Lou
I don't
Dort.
think that I don't think that Shea is inconsistent. Are there things that he can do better? And are there games that he seems to focus on maybe one thing over the other? Yes, but I think it would be difficult to call Shea inconsistent because you can almost guarantee he's going to get 30 one way or
Literally.
another. He's going to get his 35 and 5. And he's going to have his moments where he takes over the game or the game is going to come down to him. But Hallie, I feel like he's either top tier or it's very mid. And it's never to say that like he's completely terrible or trash per se because his impact looks a lot different than the average player and the average star. But I'm wondering where y'all feel like that inconsistency comes from for him specifically.
I think because we probably are wanting Hali to be a scoring guard and he's not. I feel like Hallie's pass first.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
that's probably where the inconsistency comes because he's shown that he can put up a score, but he's really looking to facilitate. And just because he can score does not mean he has to score every night.
Ashley, you hit the nail on the head. Uh, as a pass first point guard, as somebody that's been called Tyrese Halliburton, his last two midnight league games. Let me give you the mindset of a pass first point guard, where this is how a 4-point game and a 30-point game happens, because maybe that happened to me. Maybe I'll have some tape to show you. I'll send to you too. No need to. It's chill. So like in Halliburton's mind, it's like, I don't really care as long as it's a good shot. Second half, okay, now it's like when it opens up, and now that I've passed so much and they're playing those lanes, that's how he gets those easy. Like, we're like, how does he get a wide open layup in this play? In like the last play of the game against the Bucks. Let's talk about that one. It's a whole game of dishing and diming where it's like you're playing him trying to facilitate for someone else, and then when it's time, it's like you'll go. And it's like, that's how scrape a quiet 15 assists and whatever. And so it's not the flashiest game, but it's like, it, you know, I call it a game manager of the NBA. You want to call it, you know, an assist merchant, like whatever you call it nowadays. It's just like, for me, it's like, that's where at least I can see those games happen where it's like, oh yeah, like it gets to a point where it's like, I didn't find my rhythm in the game because I was dishing and diving too much. And now it's like, you're a little bit timid to shoot the ones because you really haven't gotten them up throughout the game. Or it's like, you're still thinking pass first when it's like, you have one. And like when you're playing basketball, you can't think when you're about to shoot. You're either going to go or you don't. So I think where it could change is if he's more aggressive at first and plays for his shot, and then the assists come throughout the game. Like, you get your early 8, your first half like 16, and then you can afford to chip away with assists the rest of the game, and then give, you know, your layup here, your layup there, and end up with 24, as opposed to, you know, just hunting guys right away. So life experience. We ended up losing by 4. I didn't put that in there. Can't just say that we are going to scrape by 20 and not say that I had 5 threes in the second half, but it's too late. I get them up in the last 7 minutes. You know, you have to find a good balance in the game. And so you have to find the right times to kill. And I think Shea has found the right times to kill and the right times to facilitate. Like, that's just the difference in the games of where they're at right now. It's so hard to do as a guard, especially when you have the ball in your hand.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I do feel like Shea is a more natural scorer than Halliburton is. However, I think Halliburton being that pass first guard, it won't be a detriment at all. But he will have to find that balance. And I think that he will as he gets older, and especially as he just plays more and gains more confidence. Because I think even the leap that he took this year showed how much confidence he got, likely came from playing in the Olympics, as that typically seems to happen. But I also think that this year that he's rehabbing will be a lot of reflection. And he seems like a player that, like, getting a taste of this type of run, like getting a taste of the finals, you know, and like within all these injuries, Halliburton is the youngest. So you would think that in an ideal world, he has the best ability to kind of really recover and still have his prime, honestly. So I think that'll be very interesting to see. But I definitely agree. And I think the inconsistencies are more so due to him being young than the play style that we just referenced. So I think,
Also,
yeah.
like, I would pass first for the whole first half if I saw Lou Dort, Caruso.
Oh, yeah. Also, matchup. Yeah, matchup plays a large role in, like, you can't pick your spots in the same way against OKC as you would some other team. So that naturally changes things as well. But that kind of brings me to the other point. When we're talking about number 2 options, what did you all see in this series from J-Dub and Siakam? Because I said at the beginning of the series, I thought that Indiana should play through Siakam a little bit more anyway, just because he is severely underrated in just how good he is offensively. Like, I think he's respected, but I think he's severely underrated in terms of like Siakam's a easy 25 a night scorer, in my opinion. If he's getting those touches, easily 25, right? And I don't know what the expectations of him necessarily were coming into the series, but I also think we saw J-Dub emerge and become the player that a lot of us thought he could be and a lot of us wanted him to be. And that 40-point game that he had was just beautiful to see, especially at that stage. But thoughts on the number two options and just other players that kind of impressed you all in general throughout the series?
No, J-Dub is nice. I wasn't as shocked by TJ McConnell because we kind of saw him do it in that Eastern Conference Finals
I
run against when they ran up on
was
Boston.
about TJ McConnell.
Yeah,
But
like
it,
he's
now the world sees what the Bucks see.
yeah, literally. No, he's that fundamentally sound white boy. Like that's TJ McConnell. Like he should not shock you. That's like,
And
that's
that's my theory as to why he was a guard that fared well against OKC's guards. But continue.
yeah. As far as Pascal Siakam, I don't know if I'm being too hard on him, but like I just wasn't satisfied. Like it didn't feel like he was solidified. Like with J Dub, it felt like okay, number two for sure. And with Pascal, I'm not trying to disrespect him at all because we know he's definitely that option for the Pacers. It just didn't feel like he was stepping up like they needed him to for a little bit of the series. And I feel like his detriment played a lot more of a role, I guess, in terms of having to rely on McConnell than J Dub being able to kind of like take his foot off the gas, but then Shea is stepping up. So I think Siakam's impact is a little bit more for the Pacers than J Dubs would have been for OKC.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And I think that I don't think this is a detriment to Indiana, but I do think it's something that even before Halliburton's injury, they were going to have to figure out. I get that you have a deep team and you have players that can give you 12 to 15 or even 20 on a given night, but I don't think that should take away from your two best players
Yeah.
consistently being your two best players, especially when you need them to be. And I think that sometimes I don't want to say they rely too much on team ball because I don't think that's a thing, but I think that when you have such a deep team, sometimes it stops your star players from not taking over, but being as assertive. So, like to your point about Halliburton, we love that you're a facilitator. We love that you have players that makes it easy for you to facilitate, but you should still be setting the tone as Tyrese Halliburton, right? Like if that means facilitator in a moment, so be it. But that shouldn't be as predictable. And the same with Siakam. Like we can look at OKC and everybody talks about how deep of a team they have. That don't stop Shea from getting his 30.
Yeah.
That don't mean that the team didn't have a great game as a team either. And like Shea having 30 don't mean if J Dub are up for 40, that like it doesn't change what Shea will do. But no, I think the battle at number two was equally as interesting, really, as the battle at number one, if you want to get into the real trenches of just knowing ball. But overall, what does winning a championship mean for this OKC team? And then also, what does this run in the playoffs mean for this Pacers team, considering both of these teams' futures?
For OKC, not that they needed any more confidence, but I think it's a like we can run with anybody at any time, especially moving forward. For the Pacers, though, massive blow losing the number one, but you're in a wide open East still. You have a lot of upside. We saw, some people step up. We saw obviously TJ McConnell, Pascal is back. Miles Turner is still there. You still have that core. You're just missing Tyrese. And I know that is a big missing piece, but you still, they performed in game seven, albeit that second half was a totally different story. But I think that there's a positive outlook. Carlisle, still a great coach. So, um, It's how they deal with that adversity. We saw with Tyrese on the floor, obviously, with the multiple comebacks that they had, they punch adversity in its mouth. So next season, I wouldn't be surprised if they're still just as good.
Yeah. I think for OKC, this is a weight lifted. Like there's way less pressure going into every single thing that they do now. Because like you got one and you have so much roster flexibility, so many young bodies. I think because we were talking about do they have to blow it up after this? Do they have to trade somebody if they lost to Minnesota or whatever series, Denver? Like, yeah, we were like, oh yeah, or they have to trade somebody. I'm like, we were 2 series away from a chip. Like let's say they go to that game 7 and lose to Denver, and we're still talking about like, oh yeah, something might need to happen. That's where it's like maybe we're a little too antsy to say that anything needs to change. This has been brewing for a little bit. They just needed, a little bit more exposure to show people who they are. And I think, I'm bought in. But yeah, I don't know. After the draft, San Antonio might be building another one of those things in the West, and I don't like what I'm seeing. But as for Indiana, it's not. It's bad. It's bad, but it's not the worst in the world.
Yeah.
Where it's like he is so young. You probably weren't going to get a ring in these next couple either. Like, there's no real say as to like that you guys were going to return exactly, how it was. Because I mean, not a fluke by any means that they made it to the finals, but some crazy things had to happen. This monkey paw of a run, maybe they said this was the final sacrifice, and Lord, hopefully not. But I mean, for what we saw, who knows? Because it was a ridiculous run. So maybe this is good just to reset, see what the team looks like. Minus Tyrese shows you how important he is, how valued he is, and low stakes. Get another good draft pick in a decent class next year. See what you can get out of it. See who you can fit with Tyrese. They can still build a young core around Tyrese. He gets to, he's just focused on coming back healthier. There's no, imagine he goes into a calf strain next year, doesn't tear his Achilles. It lingers into next season. Is I think get this out the way now. Let him get healthy. Let the team reset and rebuild into really, really competing with that core, or like figuring out what worked in this last series and what didn't. So I think this gives you a little more clarity. Is like, okay, maybe we can mix and match some pieces here that didn't really work in these series against, if you see more teams that look like OKC. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would agree that I would agree with everything that's been said. We already felt like OKC was on their way to potentially becoming a dynasty. At least they have the opportunity to become that. Not to necessarily put that pressure on them, but they are set up and they are built to potentially do that. So it'll be interesting to see. And also want to shout out Shea for hell of a season in general. Hell of a season. One of the best seasons by a guard that we've seen in a really
One of the best seasons by a player.
Literally.
Facts. So definitely shout out to him. And all the sentiments about Indiana, I agree. I am very curious to see if Miles Turner stays.
That's the one.
Because he will be a free agent. And I would not be surprised either way it goes. If he stays, cool. If he was to leave and get the bag and go somewhere else, especially considering that Indiana is now not necessarily guaranteed anything, even in a wide open East, depending on who comes calling, I would not be surprised if he leaves either. So I think that puts Indiana in a really interesting situation now, but we'll see.